and took on the city. Since then, she's managed quite well, thank you.
Now, if she looks as good as this before you even start putting makeup on, I mean, isn't it a bit daunting?
But she already has, she's coming from another job, so she has one a bit. I'm just refreshing it so she looks fresh and lovely for the job that we're doing now.
You're gilding a lily. It's already
She is
covered
beautiful.
with
That's
gilt.
why she's a model, because she is beautiful.
Now, you've been flying for 5 hours from the
Yeah,
coast.
I just got in from LA this morning.
And look at your eyes. How dare they
I
be
put
so
Visine in them
clear?
this morning, that wasn't full.
You tidied them up, have you?
Well, I put some eye drops in, but
And that's what makes them white.
not really. No, I have naturally white eyes, but it helps a little bit. When you're doing beauty, you know, you can see right in the corners, so.
You were discovered at what age?
When I was 16. It's quite difficult in the beginning to deal with the people. I mean, career-wise, I never had a problem in terms of getting jobs, but I mean, the whole thing in the beginning is quite hard to handle, so I wouldn't say I never had it difficult.
But I mean, if you started at 16 and you started doing very well.
Yeah.
Instantly.
Yeah, but that was in London, and I knew London was only a small part of the scene, so.
Well, not so small.
Well, I met Eileen Ford in London, and she said come over, and she'd already showed my book to a few clients over here, so I had in fact, the first person I saw was Albert Watson, and literally my first appointment, and he booked me that day for a spread in Italian Bazaar, and that gave me a boost of confidence, and then the next day I worked for American Vogue, and it just went really well from then on.
What was the difference between being a model in London and being a model in New York?
I don't know, you don't feel so much pressure in London. It's a much more relaxed atmosphere. I mean, here you really have to start working for the magazine straight away because you can't be hanging around for months, you know, not really doing anything good because the money client, you know, the big clients won't pick you up unless you have spreads in the magazine. So, I don't know, it's just there's not so many people in England, so I don't know.
So, I mean, being on the cover of Vogue, or the cover of Cosmopolitan, is an advertisement for you too,
Yes,
really.
exactly.
And the big money comes from the more boring stuff, which
Yes,
is
exactly.
catalogues.
You know, yeah, quite catalogues, and that's money, and that's nice as well, but a lot of the everyday things I do are just catalogues and pictures for stores, and, you know, it does get boring. You know, they want you to do 15 shots in a day, but that's really what pays, and that's what I'm in the business for, really.
Well, you're very confident. I mean, I find New York quite a daunting place. I've been
Really?
coming here for 25 years. You came over here at the age of 17.
I don't know, I loved it. The minute I stepped off the plane, I just knew.
You
that
felt
this
right?
was, yeah, I really did. You know, when you come from the airport and you see the skyline of Manhattan, and I just thought, this is it, you know?
Weren't you scared?
No, not really. I don't know. I always knew that I could go back if there was a problem, so I don't know. Not really.
And, I mean, you took off. Everything went right from the start?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
I mean, I had a few problems personally, but business-wise, everything really went smoothly.
Now, most models, I mean, you are ripped off by agents or boyfriends or into drugs, or, you know, they have all sorts of sad stories.
Well, I don't know. I'm a pretty smart girl, and I was brought up in a way that I just would never get involved in anything like that. And I think it's a lot of the girls from the Midwest who are from maybe broken homes or just, you know, aren't really very cultured, that they come to New York and they're not used to a big city. You know, I grew up in London, so I'm used to a city. And then they meet all these people and they're very naive, and I wasn't really like that. And I, you know, I went straight with Ford to a very good agency, and they weren't there to rip me off, and I would never get involved with guys that would just after my money, so. $2,500 a day is like my rate for advertising.
Dollars?
Dollars, yeah. And it depends. Sometimes they book you for a whole day, sometimes they book you for hours, so it depends. But
And at the end of the year, I mean, what do you take home last year?
about 200.
$200,000?
Yes.
You can live on that, can't
Yeah,
you?
sure.
There can't be many 19-year-olds.
No, that's the thing. See, you know, people said to me, oh, you should be at college, you should be studying, but, I mean, I could never, you know, even if I did that and I went into business or something, I could never earn that kind of money in England. And I can always go back to school. It's not too late, you know, you can study till you drop dead, so I'm not really wasting any time, I don't think.
I think it beats studying, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's good experience. You know, you learn about life, you learn about people, and you really...
But what are you doing with it all?
What with my money?
Ah.
I'm investing it, saving it. I'm really good. I spend only about a quarter. So I'm really doing good.
Well, how do you invest it? What's the secret?
Well, I already have a pension fund, believe it or not, because for tax reasons it gets quite complicated here. So I have a special pension fund that is like a short-term one, 10 years. So I can put like 80% of my money at the end of the year into that, and it's tax-free until you take it out, but I can invest with that money. So it can really build into a big sum. And then I'm incorporated so that I have expenses that I can put against my taxes. So my taxes are really low.
Modelling and this sort of fashion world can be quite bitchy anywhere. I would have assumed that in New York, where the competition is so great, this must be the worst of all.
Well, actually, funnily enough, it's not. It's the opposite. If you work in New York, most of the models here are established and they've got nothing to be afraid of. It's when you go out to LA or when you go to Paris and there's girls that haven't worked in New York yet and they get intimidated, and those are the bitchy ones. In New York, I work with 98% of the girls are really nice, and maybe the 2% that are bad are new or just, you know, come in from England or Paris or wherever.
How do they react to a Brit suddenly arriving and
I don't know.
getting
I
on the
think
cover?
when I first came here, there was a little bit of jealousy, I think, you know, with the American models, because there was suddenly an influx of European girls, and that the kind of all-American look went out a little bit, so I think they probably resented it then. But generally, there isn't that much jealousy, I don't think.
Now, you have to work very hard, obviously, and you have long hours, and you have to be patient and good and all that.
Yeah.
Apart from being beautiful. What about your own life here? Do you have any fun, apart from earning $1 million a year?
I don't know, you have to be careful. I mean, you can't go out and get crazy every night because you do have to get up and look beautiful. But, yeah, I mean, I have fun. You know, I have my own life, you know, my boyfriend and house in the country and all that. But I don't think any more fun than you'd have in England, necessarily. You know, people say, oh, you live in New York, must be fabulous going out to all the hot restaurants and clubs, and it doesn't really work like that. In the beginning, obviously, I went to all the new places, but now I'm more or less just go home, go and have dinner, and go to bed. It's quite boring, really.
What about the male reaction to you here, as opposed to England? Do you remember?
I think, yeah, they found me fascinating to begin with, because a lot of American women are very kind of aggressive, you know, and I was, you know, I was only 17 when I first came, and I was a little shy and, you know, kind of sweet, I suppose, and I don't know, they weren't used to that, so they liked it, I think.
I guess, yes.
Yeah.
But it hasn't changed, has it?
Well, I don't know, I think I've probably hardened up a bit, but I think European women are just softer all around. American women can be really kind of, I don't know, have a nasty side to them.
Will you stay here for the rest of your life, do you think?
I don't know, that's a tough one. Definitely for the next few years, but I think I really like London probably better than any place.
But if being a millionairess and a cover girl has distanced you from your English friends,
yeah.
How do you make American friends here? Easily?
Well, yeah, I find Americans, sometimes they're hard to get along with. They seem very overly friendly and enthusiastic and sweet, but when it comes to underneath, they're, I don't know, they're kind of cold, not cold people, but they're different. They're not, I don't know, English people are much, I think, more genuine. They're just kinder, and Americans have a slight falseness about them. The ones I've come across anyway.
But calculating, perhaps?
Yeah, well, it's...
Time come onto the box right here. Kerry?
Yes.
Could you just give me a little bit more on the hair as far as height is concerned in here?
Having spent hours creating a perfect angel, they now spend more hours mussing her up.
Now just bring your other hand up here a little bit like
Albert
this.
Watson concentrates upon women.
You just want to...
Originally a stonemason's labourer in Scotland, he's become one of America's most successful photographers. He arrived here in 1971 as the penniless dependent of his wife, an exchange schoolmistress, and today operates out of this studio building in Manhattan and their estate in Connecticut. He's the classic American success story.
What effect are you trying to get here, Albert? Is this a sexy shot, a beautiful shot?
I think it's more what we're
threatening?
after here is a little bit of romance, a little bit of Waterloo Bridge here we're after. At the moment it looks very studio. So I think that what we'll do is just throw a couple of switches and change the lighting a little bit to give it a little bit more atmosphere. And then I think, as you'll see with the other Polaroids as they come out there, we'll work on the mood, and let's see how close to Waterloo Bridge we can get with the whole look of it, you know? Now, just bring the hand down just a little bit so as it drops out of the shot. That's perfect right there. Perfect. Now it's closer.
So how did you start, Albert?
Well, I started really at the Royal College of Art in film school, but after I left film school, I lectured for a little bit of time at London University, and then decided to move myself and my family to Los Angeles, which was a big jump. We packed our bags and bought a small car with the remains of our money and drove right across America. We drove from Washington, D.C. right to Los Angeles.
Now, what decided you that photography was going to lay the golden eggs?
Well, it didn't actually in the beginning, because I was interested in film, but film was not doing very well in Hollywood at that time, at the beginning of the 70s. And so I decided to make a little bit extra money with doing some photography, of which I didn't have a lot of experience. And I had one contact in Los Angeles who happened to be an executive at Max Factor. So when I went there with a few pictures that I'd taken of on movie sets, he immediately asked me for some shots of women. You know, do I have any pictures of women? And I didn't, of course. I never photographed a woman in my life at that time. So he said, well, look, he said, I'll book a model for 2 hours, and you photograph her, and I'll give you some clothes if you pay for the film and so on. So I took virtually the last money I had to buy film, rented a camera, and 2 or 3 days later went off with a model. But I'd already talked her into doing maybe not 2 hours, but maybe a full day's shooting, even though she was only getting paid for 2 hours. So the next day, I called him, and he said, look, it looks very good. In fact, we're going to use 2 of them as ads. So I said, well, that's terrific. So at this point, I was really happy, because this $100 for me was a lot of money at that time. So if I figured I was going to get $100, I was going to be doing really well. So the next day, I had to go and get a purchase order for the money that they were going to pay me. So I immediately, when I got into the elevator, ripped open the envelope. And what I saw there was $300, which I thought for a day's work at that time, 1971, was incredible. And all the way home, I was really happy. I couldn't believe it, because at that time we were really broke, you know. And when I got home, I had another look at it, and I found out that it wasn't, in fact, $300, but $3,000. So I couldn't, it seemed an impossibility to make $3,000 in a day at that time. It just was not possible. Nobody made that, you know, not even the Beatles were making that kind of money. I called them up and said, I think you've made a mistake, you know, I have to really almost give this back or something. And they and in the beginning, the man said, when I said, look, you've given me $3,000, he said, well, I'm sorry, that's all we pay. So I said, well, it's fine, you know. And I thought, well, this isn't bad. You know, it's not a bad way of making a living.
It looked better than Dundee.
It looked better than Dundee, you know, living there on omelets in Dundee. So I just, I began bit by bit really to learn the business from that point. But it was a little bit difficult, because I kind of started at the top in a way, because that was some of the best advertising you could get. And bit by bit, I just did, you know, got started. Within 6 months, I had a studio, and then within a year and a half, I had a really big studio, one of the biggest studios in LA. And within 3 years, we had a couple of houses, we had a big studio, we had a couple of cars, usual American dream scene.
Swimming pool?
Swimming pool, everything, whatever whatever we wanted, really. And once I had that, actually, it was at that point that I decided I'd had enough of Los Angeles, and then I moved to New York. My intention was to go to America for a year to see really how it was. And of course, that's what tends to happen to people that come here. You get sucked into the system. Because it's very easy to get sucked into the whole way of life here. I've never forgotten that I'm British, because I think that that's something that one shouldn't forget. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I was in Stratford-on-Avon and round about the countryside there, and I mean, there's nothing quite like it, you know. And I certainly would like to end up back in, you know, Scotland or England, for sure. But I mean, the Americans are wonderful because they give you a chance here, and that's something that's very good. And I think it's something that the British in the beginning of the 70s, for sure, were a little bit slow in doing. You know, they were a little bit hesitant.
Well, I'm interrupting you. Carry on.
Sure, sure, absolutely. Toshi, let's have a look at the last Polaroids right here. See where we were. Okay, fine. So this is closer to what I want here. Just hold this closed a little bit with the hand. All right, close. Oh, so as it closes over here, and I pull it down a little bit. There. Just as you're coming around the corner, you give it a little bit more mystery here. Toshi, do we have a reading?
Yes, 22 front, 22 back.
Okay, perfect. Let's try 22 right here with an extension. All right. Now the eyes to me, make the eyes just a little bit smaller, huh? Soften the mouth a little bit, open a little bit. There we go. Perfect. And again, the eyes into the light. Good. That's perfect right there.
What's the difference running a photographic factory like this here and one at home?
Well, I think it's back to the specialization. That it's just because of the cost of models, hair, makeup, photographers, studios in New York. It's so expensive. With a model being, you know, £1,500 a day, you know, and you know, a hairdresser and makeup being in the area of about £800, £900 a day, that shooting sometimes with 4 or 5 models can very quickly get up to about £10,000 to £12,000 a day. And actually we've shot with certain models that are a lot more than that. Brooke Shields is a lot more money than that. I worked with Brooke Shields one day where she was actually getting paid £40,000 for the day. So therefore things have to, I think, be a little bit tighter possibly here because of the money situation than they might be in Europe.
But then your rewards are going to be much greater here, presumably, as well.
Yes, well, you know, being Scottish, you always like to get a few extra pounds if you can manage it, you know?
How about the models? Are they aggressive?
Yes, Vanessa's quite aggressive, actually.
She's a pretty tough cookie.
She is tough.
Wow.
Well, she's London, you see, so therefore that's the next, after New York, that's the next step, you know?
And
Very
expensive.
nice. Very expensive. When she first got here, she was nice and inexpensive, but now suddenly she's expensive. And when she first got here, she was easy to get. Now she's not easy to get. So she's doing very, very well.
You wouldn't become naturalized?
No, never. I mean, I think that I plan to stay British right to the end. There's no question at all about that. I mean, although I'm in, right here in the middle of the States, as it were, in the middle of Manhattan, which I mean, John Lennon said it was the center of the universe. You know, that New York was Manhattan was the center of the universe. That although one appears to be at the center of the universe, I would never become an American. I would absolutely, I'm Scottish. Scottish first, then British after that. Americans have a rather strange view, a rather old-fashioned view about the British. It's almost like